Okay. Let's just start with a little question for you. How many guys are writing documentation on your application every day? I don't see. You know? Okay, there are hands up. Okay. Today we are talking about documentation. It's not a very deep technical talk, but for me it's an important subject. I just introduce myself. I'm Vincent Ogloblinsky. I'm a software architect in front-end technologies in an IT services company in Rennes, in a small city in Brittany, in the west coast of France. I'm also an Angular trainer and also on HTML5, JavaScript, TypeScript, etc. Front-end technologies. And also sometimes speaker during meetups or French conferences. Before starting deeper with the tool I've created, I just want to start with a little story about three guys in a little startup who are starting building an application with Angular. And there are three funny guys. There are Pascal, David, and Richard. And they are each one has one mission for the application. Pascal, sorry, there's a little lag in the remote. Pascal is focused on the tooling part and the global architecture of the application. David will work on code quality and on the Angular application, the data and communication services. And Richard himself will work on continuous integration. Okay. And continuous integration and shared components will be here, better for me. And shared components declared in the application. And we will just see some timelines and interaction in the team. The first timeline is to Pascal, who start the architecture using Angular CLI, and also start several views of. Okay. Thanks. He also starts several views of the application in many views components. After that, David adds a few Angular services in a shared services folder. And finally, Richard adds the first shared components in the shared components folder. So each guy has done his job, and the structure and the architecture is implemented. And they can start building stuff and working on the feature of the application. So at this time, already is done and everything is fine. But after, there are the first interaction between team members, like several questions, like Pascal, where are the views used for your services? Or Pascal can, yes, it's in this folder, guy. Or other interaction like which components handle this feature for the application. So man, it's in this file, and again you have creation interaction. So it's cool to interact between people in the team, but it's not very efficient. But Pascal, who is a meticulous guy, wants to correct that and start searching documentation tool on the web for the project. And in the first result page, find an interesting result about a tool. Open the doc, open the website, and find a live demo. And open it. And find a documentation generated for an example project we'll see after, and see, feel nice and solid, let's have a deep look and try test it. So it just install it with the npm, just launch it after with a watch flag and started adding documentation on the code he just created with the team, and after committed the work. And after, there were another interaction like before, as what is the input of your component for the final processing view, etc. And the little answer was, hey man, sorry, a little lag. Watch the doc. It's all just as simple. And now each team member, you will see after, just has to run the generated documentation offline on this browser and see the architecture, the APIs, etc. And can find answer easily for quickly work on this project. And the story conclusion of this first part is a French proverb, who is smart tools give smart developers. It's very important, and John Papa said that before. Having great tools like Angular CLI make us more efficient about our job every day. So let me just introduce Compodoc. It's a project I've launched last year in November, and it's about documentation and tooling. It's in the philosophy of writing and having documentation which is the most close from the code and can be live generated and can be definited like living documentation. It's very important for me, and it's a very good deep book you can watch. And the main idea is to have the documentation live with the code generated the most of the time with an automated process, and not generated after the end of the project. The general process for IT projects is we are building specs, we are coding the application, and after we are doing the documentation. The idea here is to do the documentation with the code in live coding. So as you understand, Compodoc is a documentation tool for Angular application. It's just dedicated to Angular application and with TypeScript code. So what are the key features for this tool? It supports all Angular APIs out of the box. You also have display, and you will see that after in the demo, all the APIs in a clean and focused menu in the documentation for each type, like the module, components, directive, etc. You also have a great graphic about application routing for watching easily the lazy loaded routes, components, etc. You can also have a report of the documentation coverage of your code to see if you are in the right path or not. And you can, we support other TypeScript files like interfaces, or simple enums types, etc. And also, I just added a quick option is to extend your generated documentation from your code with additional markdown files that can put several information about, for example, the feature of the app, and not just a little information you have provided inside your code. We'll see that deeper after. Just one slide before the demo. What are the advantages of this tool? First, it's an offline tool using just Node.js on your computer. It's not a tool who upload your source code on a server for metadata scanning, etc. Your code stay on your computer. there are no local TypeScript compilation. We are just doing a TypeScript AST parsing and no compilation. So it's always better to don't break the documentation, the generation with a code compilation error, and that's it. So now let's have a deep look and with a demo. On the slide I will share after, there are screenshots you can watch after, but we will see that in live mode here. Now, so let's just we come. Where is now? I will come in. This mode, sorry. So I am here. So I'm here in a terminal. I have installed globally the tool, so it's available in your terminal. You just can start searching the options like with a general help command. Just try to see if they are not like John Papa other documentation running, and you can see all the options of the tool. You can watch the documentation online on the website, but here we'll just start the tool providing package the tsconfig of the project, providing an external folder with assets. It's here a screenshot of the application, a name for the doc, include an external folder with other markdown files, and other options like TS for serving the application with a local live server, and TW for starting a watch mode. So first, the tool will do a listing of all your file you find using your tsconfig file, excluding, for example, .spec.ts files. You can extend and use exclude option in the tsconfig file. And after is parsing all the files and logging what APIs he has found. And after generated the pages, and the end of the tool is generated. We'll see after all the graph for the module of the application. And now the application, the documentation is ready, and you are running in a watch mode. So now let's open it. We'll see in full screen. So now in the first page I have a copy and a HTML generated view of the README file that was in the source code. I will open it, the code here. It's this file. So if the tool find a README file in the root folder, it will include it at the first page of the tool. After that, we have an overview page. We could see a quick overview and a graphic using a great tool from Wasim Chegam, which is NGD. It's a static graph about all the links between components, modules, services, etc. And a quick overview of, for example, our modules, how many modules there are in the application, components, routes, etc. And after you can navigate in the deeper in the links with the links. Where the first menu items here is additional documentation I just provided using the terminal, which are just external markdown files. Here are to explain the application. So just a few. It is just an example here of what the application is doing. And after you can open it in the generated documentation, and for example, it's just markdown links, so you can link with your other component from the application, etc., or adding a screenshot, etc. And after you can go deeper and starting, for example, with opening a model. And the page for the display for models are also the same graphs that in the overview page, but focused on just this model. For example, here we are in app model. And after you can see, for example, the information of which file is located this model, a description that was just, we'll open it the code, just a normal comment you can put on your code. And after you will list the declaration, providers, imports, and the bootstrap information of your models. And after you can link and open each one if you want. So right now we'll see, and for many files and in the documentation, you also have a source code tab of the file you have opened. For example, app model to see, for example, the code of this model. And we will now see, for example, the app component. So it just a little simple, maybe can find more deeper list component, for example. This one, like for model pages, you have general informations, and after, before, you can see all the generated docs you have, comments you have put on your code, generated here in HTML. You have the metadata information about your components. And after, you have dedicated information about the constructor of your components and the properties. And for example, there is not here, but functions, etc., that available too. And you can also see types of that are supported in docs. For example, here it's an internal type, but maybe there is another file. You can see if it's an Angular type, it will link to the documentation link in the official website of Angular. And after that, you can see, for example, if I open this property and want to see the code, you can link and you can move directly to the source tab in the correct line to see, for example, the detail of these variables. For components, we also have a template tab, so you can see more deeper the template of your components for more, searching information. And we have added a DOM tree tab. You can see a graphic of your of the DOM of the component template, and you can easily navigate, for example, between the list components, which also do a list of to-do. And here you can, for example, if we want, open the to-do component here, but just by clicking on the cycle, and open another component here with constructor methods. There are also inputs for this one, and function properties here. There is for this one, you can also support dedicated README for one file if you want. For example, this component has a dedicated README file, so you can find it in this tab. And that's all for components. And after, we have also support of directives, general classes of TypeScript file. Here is a to-do model, for example. You can see all the methods, all the properties with their types of if they are private or public or not. You can see just for that source code. You can also link between. Just open the code of this component. You can also add. We'll support. It's not in. It's a to-do model. Sorry. You can also, we just support 4 JSDoc tags actually, which the first one is returns params, And we are also support of link JSDoc tag. You can also make a link, for example, here between the to-do model and the to-do store with services of an internal services, Angular services. And you can find easily the link between generated documentation. So you can also easily open it and find information about these services too. So you have injectables in the menu. You are also support of TypeScript interfaces and also pipes if you want, if you have just pipes of your code. Another great link is routes graph, which is built using all the information we have found in your files between the modules and links between them. Also for here, the first two modules, which are app routing module and home routing module. And after you have also lazy loading module here, which is about module. And you can easily understand which component is loaded and navigate inside. So for example, I can reopen the about component if I want. So it's a dynamic graph. You also have a mix page which will list all the general variables or functions or types you can find in your code. And the last part is a documentation coverage page. You can easily find and see if your project is well documented or not with a tool, and for example, see that this component, for example, has a count 40% coverage, and can easily add a code if you want. Or the documentation coverage just support all the public stuff you exposed. The private functions or code are not used inside the calculation. And that's all for the demo. And you can also easily, for example, during the documentation, easily update, for example, a comment. So maybe we'll see, reopen the to-do model, which is here. And for example, just extended the description of the model with just a few more words. And you can find that the tool will detect that the file has changed, reparse it in, and regenerate only the dedicated page. And you can see that the doc is updated in live mode directly in your browser. So that's it. That's just for the demo. I will just finish with a few slides. So we'll just move deeper. Just mix. So we also provided 6 or 7 themes. If you want to use a different theme, for example, prefer like a fresh design or yellow style, etc. You can watch and watch which one you love. I missed to present that. We have also, sorry, we also have a little button feature, which is in your documentation. Maybe you can easily want to search something. You can use the search input in the left menu, and easily have a listing about your information he has found, and for example, easily reopen the home model if you want to quickly find and don't want to navigate in the menu. That's it. Watch the last. So you have more different running scenario if you want. For example, if it's in a local on your computer, or in, for example, in a continuous integration process. You can just generate the documentation, or generate it the first part and after serving it, or maybe you can just generate one way after saving it and just starting the watch mode. Current limitation we have are just support of spread variables in root definitions and more globally in other code we are just parsing, so we are working on it. The roadmap for the next months are maybe to support Angular.6 project with TypeScript, because we are just parsing your code and not compiling it. We can easily, maybe, I think, support also Angular.6 projects. We will try to move with Wasim the model graph from a static and SVG graphic to a more dynamic way using Viz.js. Support more general TypeScript and EXIS syntax, and adding other features like this one, the arrows flow from it with, for example, adding a way for a document can extend your documentation with a workflow of the data and the user experience with this data. For example, during the account creation process in the application, the data is starting from this component, passing through, for example, with the wizard component part 1, and after going to another component, after going to one services or two, and after going, for example, outside with a REST API. The idea is to put this information in your comments, like other JSDoc params, and after parsing all the information, can easily generate a graphic about this workflow and to understand easily the where and how the data is moving from your code and from your components during different scenarios of your application. That's it. You have an online demo in this link. You can watch generated documentation of the project I have just watched today. I have started a few days ago the version 1 in beta mode, so you can easily find all these options available in this npm package, scoped package. And that's it. Have an happy documentation maybe in the next days. If you have questions.